Hello, hello, hello. My name is Robert. I am the recovery guy, and you have entered into The Fix.
Good afternoon, evening, good morning. This is Robert, the recovery guy, and this is a special podcast from the Saturday night speaker meeting at the South Davis Recovery Club. Relax, enjoy, and share. Have a great night. Thanks for listening.
Hey friends, I'm Ryan and I'm the problem.
Hi, Ryan.
My sobriety date is September 18th, 2016. That's not my first sobriety date. My first sobriety date was in 2003 when I was 17 years old. I had got arrested at Woods Cross High School with possession of marijuana. A guy like me, right? And instead of going to juvenile hall, the school cops said, let's take him to Lifeline, which is a rehab for youth. So that's where I got introduced to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and did a lot of my self-thinking there, but before that, my whole childhood has been based around drinking or drug use. Let's see, I started when I was 12, predominantly, like half my family is super LDS and the other half is non-denominational. So you can only imagine how those family functions went, right? Super chaotic. And I would be grabbing beer out of coolers for my cousins that were like a little bit older than me, like 15, 16, and so on and so forth. And when I would get them the beer or the alcohol, they would hide it in trees and bushes and other and other weird places like that, so they didn't get caught. So I learned at a young age, hey, if I hide alcohol, I'll be okay. I can do this. And it started out with me trying my grandparents' highballs or mixed drinks at night or hot toddies. And then I learned how to make old fashions at like the age of 13. So like people would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And my answer at like 14 years old, I want to be a bartender. And they were like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can already make any drink you want. Test me. And I would make it. And they were like, how do you know this? It's because I have alcoholic families, but, hey, we don't judge here, right? We don't kick our wounded. And so from there, it just started out with a bunch of abuse in my childhood, from verbal to physical. I was kidnapped by my real dad, punched out a bay window, took me. I think I was like 4 or 5. So a lot of stuff there. And then he was on his path of destruction with substances and was never in our lives. And people ask me to this day, why don't you celebrate Christmas? And it's because every Christmas I had, we'd wake up and all of our shit would be gone and pawned off, so he could have his next fix. So I'm just like, I don't celebrate. That just turned me away completely. It's too commercialized. It was a rough childhood. Having a single mom, 2 boys. We weren't the easiest. You guys that know me in the rooms know that I have a mouth on me. And I'm proud of myself that I haven't let one fly yet. And that's the way I've always been. I've always been one that would go to therapy for anger issues or suicidal ideations or stay in a mental hospital. Tell my therapist what they wanted to hear so I could get out. That's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. But for me, it was always the same result. And in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it tells you you'll go to 3 places: jails, institutions, or death. Well, I had almost experienced all 3 because of my shenanigans. And that was just 17. So they got tired of it, tired of the violence, tired of me fighting, and they're like, let's just try something different, because the youth facilities weren't helping. You know, it was almost probably making me worse. They were pumping me full of drugs. I was taking Adderall, Zoloft, like Dexedrine, Lexapro, just all these narcotics to help with depression, help with anxiety, help with bipolar, help with ADHD. Yeah, I don't have that, right? Help with all this other stuff. And the only thing that really calmed me down was cannabis. So I would use cannabis. And it gave me almost straight A's. I went from being a tear in school to almost a straight A student. The only thing they wouldn't let me do is throw on the pottery wheel because I could get hurt, you know. But it's like, he's doing a lot better in school, so how exactly do we juggle this? You know, because my doctor's like, he hasn't refilled any of his scripts in months. And my mom's like, yeah, I don't know what the deal is, but it's been a night and day difference. And that's because I was using cannabis. And then I graduated high school. And, you know, everything else was good there. And then the death of my grandparents happened. And I hit the bottle hard. Because, once again, I cope. That's how I escape. I've used substances my entire life, so that's how I escape. Anything bad happens, it didn't matter. It could be raining, it could be sun shining, it could be birds are chirping. I had to drink. I didn't need, you know, I would just look for every excuse to go out and abuse alcohol. And my mom's like, you have a problem. And I said, I'm not an alcoholic, I don't go to meetings. Now where am I? I'm an alcoholic that goes to meetings. It turned into an utter disaster with my drinking. I did some crazy stuff. Some stuff that people are like, how did you pull that off? I'm going to talk about one of my good friends, Ryan. He passed away when I picked up 18 months of sobriety. I picked it up an hour or two before I went to his viewing. He passed from congestive heart failure from inducing 90 cans of air duster. And the reason why I bring it up is because he called me that night. You know, misery needed company, so I showed up. That's what we do here in Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't shoot our wounded, and we show up for those that are suffering. And before I went, I didn't have a plan. You know, I wasn't like, oh, I got to call my sponsor and make sure everything's good. I'm like, you know what? No. It's somebody that needs me. He's one of my best friends. I'm there. So I showed up. First thing he did was, your phone's bugged by the FBI, because he was gone. So he smashed my phone, threw it out the window. I body slammed him through the kitchen table. It was like a WWE scene in his house. It was bad. Broken furniture, blood on the walls. My eye was cut open. My lip was busted open. He was lumped up. You know, we were throwing hands. And I was just like, where did this come from? What happened? You know, something in his mind flipped. And with my phone destroyed, his phone was completely shut down, and it popped up for his wife, and I sent her a text and said, can you check on your husband? And that's when he got admitted to Lakeview, and that was the day he passed. And I was like, oh, he's used this before. He's crashed cars. He's done all sorts of stupid stuff. Mostly with me. You know, and Ryan's a big part of my story, actually. And when he passed, it was like all these memories flooded back. We would work in construction for my uncle's company. We would carry like fists of Jaeger. I had Jaeger. He had, I believe it was Southern Comfort. And we would just carry it in our work truck. And one day we went down to Utah County. And we may or may not have taken that dinosaur that was all over the news. You know, and I'm like, why are we still in this dinosaur? He's like, I think you're looking in my mom's front yard. Okay, you know, hey, let's go. Like, I'm down. You know, you're my ride or die. Let's have some fun. We didn't think about the bigger picture. You know, we just thought of, like, it's in the moment, let's just make it happen. Well, it took us, like, 8 ratchet straps and 5 hours later to get it on this truck, so we put in some effort. Luckily, it was a dump bed, and then we got back to the shop, and my boss was not happy. You know, there was a lot of profanity used in that sentence. And we got nervous and we dumped it off in a canal in Centerville with a forklift because it was too big for us to manhandle. You know, those are just some of the things that I think about with my destruction. Yeah. Or the time that I got lost at Lakeside Golf Course when I was on acid playing in a high school golf tournament. I got lost in a sand trap. How you get lost in a sand trap at Lakeside is beyond me. But I did. And they found me building a sandcastle. You know, the round had ended and my coach came and found me, and yeah, Ryan was not Ryan. I would go to punk shows just completely annihilated. Standing in line waiting to see the Casualties or Real Big Fish or Less Than Jake, or any of those guys, just hammered. You know, I couldn't remember a show to save my life. Even me playing in my own punk bands, I would forget lyrics, forget bass lines. I felt like Fat Mike from NoFX. Honestly, you know, with a lot of violence, a lot of just angry, young, and poor, man. You know, and I wasn't the typical kid of, like, clean cut. I was a typical kid that wore a battle vest, had a 3.5 foot mohawk that was half pink, half green. Like, just didn't care. You looked at me wrong, I was punching you in the face. That's the way it was. Hey, they're coming for me. Sirens. No, just kidding. You know, but that's the way I lived my life. I was super reckless. Super reckless. I didn't care about who I hurt, what I did. As long as I could get drunk or high, I was good. You know? And that's why I turn to chapter 5 as much as I do. In every meeting, all of you have heard me share, and it always resorts to chapter 5. Very first line, rarely have we seen a person fail who has steadily followed her path. First edition, never have we seen a person fail who has steadily followed her path. That's scary. That's something a guy like me had to hear. We stood at a turning point. Do I turn right where nothing's left or left where nothing's right? Right? You know? And then you look around the room and you see the think, and it's upside down. And I'm like, why that? Like, what's the point of that? And an old timer had told me it's because your thinking is upside down. As soon as you get better, it'll start to get better. And I never understood it fully, you know, because I came into the rooms in 2016 and I told people I was sober, and the first thing I was told was, you're not going to make it. An alcoholic like you, you're not going to make it. A guy like you, you're not going to make it. And I was the smartest alcoholic, you know, because I don't have any character defects. I'm perfect, right? I had like 30 days of sobriety, and I sat down with my family and I told them I was sober. And they were like, oh, cool. And my sister has been the one that's impacted me the most. Said, for how long this time? You know? And that kind of stuck with me, like, okay, touche, it's not my first time. You're right. And so I stayed sober out of spite. Which is, I don't recommend that for anybody. I don't. I was white-knuckling it. I wasn't working a program. I didn't have a sponsor. I would just show up to the rooms, sit in the back, play on my phone. I would get here like 5 to 10 minutes before the meeting started, and I would leave like 5 to 10 minutes before it ended. So nobody could get to know me. Nobody could talk. I would just bloom in and out like a ghost. And I did that repeatedly for the longest time. And then I wanted what I saw other people having in the rooms. You know, you hear about the 9-step promises that fear of economic security will leave us, that will comprehend the word serenity. And I'm bullshit. My life's not going to be that good. You know, because I would see these dudes with 40 years, and I'm like, yeah, right. Does that include weekends, holidays, birthdays, paydays? You know, because you're a newcomer and you see these guys picking up big chips. It's like, there's no way. You know, my hats are off to you guys. You have a front row seat to the miracle show. And I'm proud of you, bro. Proud of all my sponsees that are here tonight. It's been a hell of a ride. You know, and it's all because 2 dudes that couldn't stay sober sat down and was like, we need to figure out this problem. And I keep asking, hey, if Bob didn't go to the Oxford group, will we have step 3? And they were like, you're an idiot. I was like, I know. They were like, we wouldn't have AA. And I'm like, holy shit, there's a bigger picture than just finding a power that we have to understand that's greater than ourselves. You know, it's all action steps. Coming in, I am powerless over alcohol and my life has become unmanageable. It's an action step. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, I carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. I take out the word tried. I tried to get sober. It didn't work. It's an action. You know, I try to live a perfect program, which we say progress, not perfection. I say perfection, not progress. And people were like, why? And I'm like, because I'm perfectly imperfect. And when I am with my sponsees, it is nothing but Alcoholics Anonymous. It is nothing but the chaos factor when we're together and talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I'm going to throw a couple of my sponsees under the bus, if I may. And Brett gives me a thumbs up. Caden's over there nodding his head. Caden the jaywalker. First off, there's a story behind the jaywalker. We're going down, I believe it was the 3 o'clock meeting, Misfit of Island Toys down at the Maria Lano Club. And he's like, bro, I hate the story of the jaywalker. And I'm like, yeah, why is that? He's like, because I don't understand it. And I just started laughing. I'm like, you're an idiot. He goes, why? And I'm like, I want you to introduce yourself as Caden the Jaywalker until you start to understand what is going on. That's why he does it now. And everybody laughs about it. Right? Because if you think about it, we're all the jaywalker.
Yeah.
You know, we've all walked in front of the bus, broke a leg. Oh, I'll never do that again. I don't know how many times I drank and was sick, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm never drinking again. And then next thing you know, I'm doing the same thing,
Yeah.
like not even 5 hours later.
Yeah.
Right? It's a definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. Well, when you stop being the jaywalker, like it says in the big book, when you cease fighting everyone and everything, it will recoil as if it were a hot flame. Everything will go away. Then the 9th step promises start to come in. You will know peace. You will know serenity. You know, and I'm a living testament to that. I don't know why. I don't know how. But it's like God has put me here for a reason that I don't know, because I'm one of the lucky ones. I shouldn't be here. You know. I have over, I believe I lost count, but it was like 196 suicide attempts. From overdose to putting a loaded gun in my mouth and it jammed. Yeah, I actually pulled the trigger and it jammed. And then I picked up the round, re-racked it, and it fired. You know, and I'm like, holy shit. And that's when my perspective of life got a little bit better. Because I'm like, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. You know, where I didn't think that my mental health had anything to do with my alcoholism. I was wrong. And that was one of my biggest character defects. You know, I drank to fit in. I drank because I wasn't accepted. I drank because of my anxiety, my depression. Little did I know it was making it worse. Right? But it's like, nah, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm numbing out. I don't need this anymore. And then next thing you know, I get sober and I'm like, I can never drink again. And I was like, kind of disappointed at the fact that I couldn't drink anymore. You know, because I keep reading in the big book, like, step up to your nearest bar and try it. Try some controlled drinking. And I'm like, that is a terrible fucking idea. Why would you suggest that? You know, like, a guy like me can't do that. Because I would be off to the races. I have plenty of more relapses in me, but I don't know if I have another recovery.
Yeah.
You know, and when I heard that in the rooms, I was like, this is something I have to do for the rest of my life. This is something I have to do that is serious. You know? And so going back to my sister that said, oh, congratulations, how long is it going to be this time? Well, I asked her, I'm like, hey, I would like a relationship with my nieces and nephews. And she's like, how much time do you have? And I was like, 90 whole days. And she's like, nope, not good enough. And I was just starting to get pissed because I'm putting in all this work. I'm really not putting in work, but I'm telling my family that I'm putting in work. I'm going to meetings, but I'm really not going to meetings. Like, you know, and then when I started working in on this program is when the psychic change started to happen and I started to put time together. You know, so I went back to her at a year, and I'm like, hey, I have a year of sobriety. Can I see my nieces and nephews? And she's like, nope, still not good enough. And I'm like, hey, I have 18 months of sobriety. Can I see my nieces and nephews? Nope, still not good enough. Hey, I have 3 years of sobriety. Nope, still not good enough. Hey, Jen, can I talk to you? And she's like, yeah, what's up? And I'm like, you know, I pick up 8 years in 2 days. What do I have to do to see my nieces and nephews? And she's like, you know what? You've shown how much you've grown up. You've shown a true change. And I'm sorry that I have deprived you of them growing up, of you going to their sporting events, of me holding you back, because now my niece is having those same problems. And now she's reaching out to me. What do I do? And I tell her, just do your best. That's what I tell my niece. Just do your best. Because I still want you around. It's heavy. Alcoholics Anonymous is not easy. And they say it's a simple program. There's nothing simple about it. Here are the steps we took as a suggestion, because we don't tell people what to do, except for me telling Katie. See, I told you I'd pick on my sponsees a lot, man. Brett, don't worry, you're not out of the woods yet, bro. And they take every suggestion that I give them. And they run with it. And they're starting to see a psychic change in themselves that I'm starting to see in them as well. Me and Brett will go to breakfast, and next thing you know, he's like, my life is chaotic. And I'm like, okay, so I start taking everything at our table. I think we were at IHOP, yeah? And I start scattering it all over the table, and he's like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm like, your life is so chaotic. I'm dumping salt and pepper, and I'm throwing salt over my shoulder because it's bad luck if you spill it and you don't do that. And I'm just causing chaos. And as we're going over Chapter 5 and Chapter 6 and talking about the 9th step promises and just talking about recovery in general, I start picking up each piece and putting it where it goes. And I said, with this program, you can get your life back. Even if it's a little bit chaotic, it can be fixed. Because I'm a very visual person. For those that know me know this. And because of my sobriety, I found stuff that I haven't done in decades. I started painting. Yeah, I'm probably better than Bob Ross. Happy little tree. No, I'm drawing like real stuff, like Aurora Borealis, where we have a catastrophe happen.
Yeah, we did.
Parker hit my paint, and it went all over my painting, and he's like, and we're just laughing uncontrollably, where we're like drooling. It's like 11 o'clock at night. His parents are like, what the hell is going on? And we're like, nothing, it's okay, it's fine. And Parker's like, I don't know if we can fix this. And so I looked at my hands and I'm like, I think I can fix it. And I was going to bring the painting with me to show you the chaos factor that happened that turned into a masterpiece, but I gave it away to my aunt today for Christmas. And so if you go, I got pictures of it, I'll show you. But I started fixing it with my hands. And I literally started finger painting with oil-based paints, which is something you don't do, because I'm looking at them and I'm like, I can't touch anything. And the one thing I do as a mechanic, I have greasy hands, my nose itches automatically, and I itch it, and next thing you know, I have oil covered in grease, and yeah, it's bad, But I fixed that painting, and it actually didn't turn out too bad. There wasn't a happy little tree or a fun little cloud. Bob Ross reference right there, if you didn't get that. But it's just something that I'm finding passion in. Again. Because for me to do art, I always had to be under the influence. For me to make music, I had to be under the influence. For me to just even step outside of my bedroom door, I had to be under the influence. I don't live that way anymore. I can go to punk shows sober and run into dudes in the room, shirtless, getting dropped crowd surfing. Yeah, I'm 280 pounds. I should not be crowd surfing. But you got to do something once. And I got dropped and hit the rail and broke some ribs. It's okay. I'm good. I'm fine. I'm still alive. I'm kicking. That was the first time. I did it again the same night and got dropped on my head on the concrete. Jaywalker at its finest. But this time I'm sober. You know? And it's like, I'm just getting amped up. And they're like, why? I'm like, Pennywise is right around the corner. We know what's going to happen with that one. You know, I can remember shows. I can remember your names. I can remember dates, times, appointments. Like, it's pretty bad when my parents call me and they're like, when did we get married? I'm like, shit, I don't know. I know I was in high school, so like 20 years ago, and they were like 16. And I'm like, see, you're smarter than I am. What do I know? I'm just a dude in recovery. And they're like, you need to stop selling yourself short.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest examples that I had, is I sell myself short with everything I do. You know, just like when you do that big old scary 4-step and you're writing down all your faults. Well, I had to do 36 of those big scary 4 steps because I couldn't find my part in anything. It was the cop's fault that I got busted. It was the cop's fault I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. It was, you know, it was God's fault because the sun was shining is why I was drinking. It was everybody else's fault except for Ryan's. And when I came to a power bigger than myself, I started to realize, like, I am no longer God. Because for my whole life, I tried to play that role. And I failed miserably. You know, and I tell my sponsees still to this day, when are you going to stop driving the car? And they're like, if I don't drive it, I'll crash. And I'm like, the hypothetical car, guys, come on, stay with me here. And let your higher power take over and take your life into a direction that you want it to be in. And they're like, that's a good analogy. It's a good idea. It's something I never thought of. You know, Brett and I, how many more Alano clubs do we have? 4?
At least.
4 at least? You know, we made it a goal to hit every Alano club in the state of Utah. And I think probably one of the funnest ones wasn't in the state of Utah, but in the close city of Evanston, Wyoming, where it was probably the size of the tables in front of us, right? About that wood-burning stove. It was like winter, so it was cold. And he's like, that was a really good meeting. What should we do now? And I'm like, let's buy illegal fireworks. Because I'm me, right? I'm still the same guy, just with different ideas. Yeah, they're not always the greatest or the brightest, but at least I'm a crayon in the box. Where before I was like the broken crayon that was just thrown away. I was disregarded. I was trash. I was a shell of a man. Where today I have integrity. I can look you dead in the face and tell you I love you. And actually mean it. I can be impeccable with my word. Yeah, that's 4 Agreements. If you guys haven't read it, it's a good book. You know, it's just crazy because a lot of the guys in the room have referred or have heard me say I was a salmon. I always swam against the current. I always fought everybody. I always fought everything. And somebody in the room said, stop being a fucking salmon. You know, but a part of me, that's the chaos factor. I am addicted to chaos. And with me saying that, that's when my sobriety hit another level. It's like, I'm doing so good, everything's on point, but why is there still that little problem? And it's like, oh, it's the chaos factor. Okay, that makes sense. You know, and then I did a 4-step on it, and I'm like, whoa. I didn't realize how big of a role it actually played. You know? And then going through and making those 9-step amends is probably one of the coolest things that I've ever done in my sobriety. And I've done a lot of cool things, you know, but being forgiven for the wrongs that I've done is just something I'm never going to forget. It's a super powerful step, you know. And one of my sponsees is like, yeah, I made an amends. I said, what are you doing? You're on step 4. Why are you jumping to 9? You have 5 more steps. He's like, I felt it was right. And I'm like, how did it go? It went really well. I said, you got lucky. You were walking a tightrope with no net underneath you. And before you do that, call me. You know, you're always supposed to call your sponsor before you make a 9-step amends. And I never understood that. I never understood, and it's because we give you advice on how to do it. Or if it goes south quick, which I'm glad it didn't, we can be there to say, it'll be okay. You know, we're your security blanket. I am learning more from my sponsees in this program than hopefully what I'm teaching them. You know, because we just hang out, we have a good time. And the funnest times to run steps is when you're on the freeway. Because you can't throw yourself out of a moving vehicle doing 90. I mean, you could, but I wouldn't recommend it. You know, it just, sobriety is giving me the greatest gift of life. And I get to give back what I was given freely. You know, before I was an AA thief. I wasn't giving back anything to anybody. I was just keeping it all to myself. No, it's mine. It's in my pocket. You can't have it. It's my ball and I'm going home. You know, but that 10, 11, and 12 is all about giving back. Doing service. Whether that's mowing lawns and not getting caught, which I did for the first year of my sobriety. And when I got caught, they asked me, why didn't you mow the backyard? I said, I didn't know if you had a dog. I'm terrified of dogs, by the way. I call them all Cujo. There's a reason behind it. You know, and making those great connections of finally getting caught mowing lawns. And they're like, why were you doing that? And I'm like, I'm in sobriety, and I was just trying to be a service. You know, and I still mow their lawns to this day. I'm trusted. I have a key to every one of my parents' cars. I have a key to the property. I have a key to the trailers. I can go whenever I want. That's because I've earned the trust back. Where before, if I was drinking, you know, the parents would be like, we're going out of town. We're throwing a kegger. You know? And that's how we got caught. Was we're going out of town, and as soon as they would pull out of the driveway, we'd watch them go down the road. They'd make the corner. We'd start bringing in everything. Well, they bamboozled us by going around the block and coming back in, and we had everything set up. And we're like, well, you're not supposed to be here. You know? So it was like, we're going out of country. You guys are going to stay with family because you guys can't be trusted. I don't have that anymore. My parents just went to Rotom. And it was cool because I didn't talk to them, so I thought something had happened. They're in a foreign country, and I'm like, I haven't heard. Nobody sent me a text. I'm calling my other family members, like, have you guys heard from my mom? And they're like, yeah, she texted us. And I'm like, well, okay, I feel loved because I didn't get a text saying, hey, we made it to Rotom. You know, it's awesome. Sobriety is probably one of the best things I've ever done for myself. It's the greatest gift I've ever given myself. You know, and when newcomers approach me and they say, hey, I like your share, I said, I'm just a guy like you. I just have a little bit more time, but right now we all have the same amount of time, 24 hours. You know, and when I see people picking up 30-day chips, I'm like, that is the hardest chip to get. Because I don't know how many 30-day chips I have. because you're just fresh out of rehab, or you're fresh out of jail, or you're fresh out of an institution, and the first thing you want to do is just go back to that old lifestyle. But then you come into the rooms of AA, and it's like, what do I do now? Because, these rooms are scary. It's scary to walk in and say, I'm an alcoholic. But I've got your back. Let me love you until you can love yourself. And that I will do. I promise you that. And the dudes in the room that know me, they know that. Because I love every single one of you. I know every single one of your names for a reason. It's because we've crossed paths. We're on the same trip. And